Welcome back to Sahaba Role Models, where timeless stories meet today's world. Join us as we bring the wisdom, courage, and devotion of the Sahaba to life, inspiring every listener, young and old, to find guidance and strength in their legacy. Episode 2 is now live. After our first episode with Abdullah ibn Abbas, where we saw the power of dedication to learning, humility, and the importance of sharing knowledge, we turn now to the story of Abbad ibn Bishr. Abbad's courage and deep love for the Quran kept him steadfast, even in the face of danger. His story reminds us of the strength that faith and devotion can bring to our own lives today. Discover how Abbad's bravery and resilience inspire us to stay strong in our beliefs and commitments.
And welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Today, we're going to explore the life of a remarkable Sahaba, Abbad ibn Bishr.
Abbad Ibn Bishr, a name that echoes with unwavering faith and courage.
Exactly. His story takes us back to the early days of Islam, a time of immense challenges. It's a story you might even recognize from aleen.org. Definitely worth checking out.
It all unfolds just 4 years after the Hijra, the Prophet Muhammad's, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, migration from Mecca to Medina, a time when the Muslim community faced threats from all sides.
So like a really volatile period.
Absolutely, a constant state of alert. The Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was constantly strategizing, leading expeditions, working tirelessly to protect the Muslims.
Wow, I can't even imagine the pressure. And it's in this context that Abbad ibn Bishr's story really comes to life, right?
Yes, it does.
So tell us, who was this young man from Medina? What made him stand out?
Well, Abbad was known for his deep love of the Quran. He was even nicknamed Friend of the Quran.
Friend of the Quran? I love that.
He was completely devoted to it,
Yeah.
learning it, reciting it, living by its teachings.
A true testament to his faith. Are there any stories that really capture this devotion?
Oh, there's a remarkable story about Abbad's dedication. One night, the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was performing his night prayers.
Okay.
And he heard this beautiful voice reciting the Quran.
Whoa.
It was Abbad, totally immersed in his worship.
Can you imagine? You're the prophet, peace be upon him, and you hear this incredibly moving recitation in the middle of the night. I get chills just thinking about it.
It's a powerful image. And you know what's even more amazing?
What's that?
The Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was so touched by Abbad's sincerity that he prayed for his forgiveness.
That's beautiful. It really shows the depth of Abbad's connection with the Quran. But this peaceful image is a bit deceptive, right? Because things were about to get pretty intense for Abbad and the Muslim community.
You're right. Word reached the Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, about potential threats. From tribes in a region called Najd.
Oh.
To protect the community, he decided to lead a preemptive expedition. And Abbad was among the 400 men who set out with him.
400 men. You can really sense the growing danger they were facing. What happened when they reached Najd?
Well, when they arrived at the villages, they found them deserted, except for the women.
What?
The men had fled, some to the hills, clearly preparing to fight.
It sounds like they knew the Muslims were coming. This was serious business.
It was, and in response, the Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, implemented a remarkable strategy during prayer, Salat al-Khawf.
Salat al-Khawf, the prayer of fear. That's incredible. I mean, imagine praying while knowing that at any moment you might be attacked.
Exactly. That's the reality they were facing.
So how did it work?
The Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, divided the Muslims into 2 groups. One group prayed while the other stood guard, and then they switched. It's a powerful example of their unwavering faith, even in the face of danger.
It's like they were saying nothing, not even the threat of death, will stop us from connecting with our Creator.
So did it work? Did the tribesmen attack?
The tribesmen were clearly intimidated. They chose not to engage in a full-blown battle.
Oh, wow. So the expedition was a success in that they avoided a major confrontation.
Right.
But I'm sensing this is just the setup for an even more remarkable story about Abbad ibn Bishr.
You always pick up on those subtle hints.
I try. As they were making their way back to Medina, something extraordinary happened. The Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, asked, "Who will be our guard tonight?"
And I bet Abbad, always ready to serve, stepped up.
You know it.
Who was with him?
He was with another companion, Ammar ibn Yasir. They were considered brothers by the Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and they volunteered for this duty together. They went to the mouth of the valley to keep watch.
Okay, so here they are, these two companions, alone in the darkness, responsible for the safety of the entire group. What happened next?
Abbad, always thoughtful, offered to take the first watch so Ammar could rest.
I guess.
So Ammar fell asleep, leaving Abbad alone under the night sky. Now remember, this is Abbad, friend of the Quran. The night was still, the stars were out, and he felt this powerful urge to connect with his faith. So he began to pray.
Of course he did.
He started reciting Surah Al-Kahf, a beautiful chapter of the Quran about faith, truth, and patience.
A long chapter.
It is. And Abbad was completely absorbed in his recitation.
It's a beautiful image. This young man, alone under the stars, connecting with his faith. But I know this peace is about to be shattered.
You're right. There was an attacker lurking in the shadows. Someone seeking revenge for his wife, who had been taken hostage during the expedition.
This doesn't sound good.
He was filled with rage, determined to make the Muslims pay.
And he saw Abbad.
He did. He saw Abbad silhouetted against the sky, and seeing his chance, he silently drew his bow and shot an arrow.
Oh my gosh. Straight at Abbad.
Straight at him.
What did Abbad do?
Now here's where the story becomes incredible. Instead of panicking or crying out in pain, Abbad calmly pulled the arrow out of his body and continued reciting the Quran.
Wait, what? He just kept reciting. That's unbelievable.
It's almost hard to believe, right? But the attacker wasn't done. Driven by fury, he shot 2 more arrows.
No way.
Both finding their mark. But each time, Abbad calmly pulled the arrows out and continued praying, completely unfazed. He finished the entire chapter, even performing his ruku and sujud.
That's astonishing. He was literally reciting the Quran under a hail of arrows. His commitment to his faith is truly inspiring. But what about Ammar? Was he still sleeping through all this?
He was. Only after completing his prayer did Abbad wake Ammar, saying, "Get up and stand guard in my place. I have been wounded."
Can you imagine Ammar waking up to that? He must have been horrified. What did he say?
He was completely shocked. He said, "Glory be to God. Why didn't you wake me when you were hit by the first arrow?"
Yeah, that's what I would have asked. So what did Abbad say? What could possibly explain such incredible restraint in the face of such pain and danger?
Abbad's reply gives us a glimpse into the depths of his faith. He said, "I was reciting verses of the Quran which filled my soul with awe, and I did not want to cut short the recitation. The Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, had commanded me to commit this surah to memory. Death would have been dearer to me than that the recitation of this surah should be interrupted."
Wow, that's powerful. It really highlights his unwavering devotion. He was willing to endure any hardship for the sake of his faith.
Exactly. And this is just one story. It barely scratches the surface of who Abbad Ibn Bishr really was.
There's so much more to this story.
Oh, there's so much more to uncover about his life and contributions. He wasn't just pious. He was also incredibly courageous and generous.
I can't wait to hear more. This is shaping up to be an incredible deep dive.
That story about the arrows really makes you think. What kind of faith allows someone to prioritize finishing a chapter of the Quran over, their own safety?
Right. It makes you think about your own priorities, that's for sure. But Abbad's life wasn't all moments of extreme courage. What else made him stand out in the early Muslim community?
Well, he was known for his incredible generosity. Always at the forefront when sacrifice was needed, but the last to accept any reward.
Really? Wow. Putting the needs of others above his own. That's amazing. And it sounds like the community recognized these qualities in him, right?
It did. Abbad was actually put in charge of managing the wealth of the Muslims.
Right.
Think about that, the level of trust he had earned. They knew he would always put the community first.
It's like he was truly living the values of the Quran. His actions spoke volumes. Do we have any accounts from other companions about him? I'd love to know how he was perceived by those who knew him.
Yeah, we do. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, once praised him.
What did she say?
She said, "There are 3 persons among the Ansar whom no one could excel in virtue. Sa'd ibn Mu'ad, Usaid ibn Qudair, and Abbad ibn Bishr."
Wow. That's high praise. To be mentioned alongside those names, it really speaks to his character. It's sad, though, knowing that his life was cut short on the battlefield.
It is. The Battle of Yamama. A turning point in Islamic history, but also the end of Abbad ibn Bishr's journey in this world.
The Battle of Yamama. What was at stake in this battle?
It was a major battle against Musaylima, a false prophet who had gained a significant following.
A false prophet.
Yeah, he posed a real threat to the stability of the, still young Muslim community.
I see. So the stakes were high.
Incredibly high. This was a battle for the very survival of Islam.
Wow. So where does Abbad fit into all of this?
Even before the battle started, it said that Abbad had a feeling he wouldn't survive. But you know what's really interesting?
What's that?
His main concern wasn't about his own fate. He was worried about the Muslims. He saw a lack of trust and confidence between the Muhajirin, those who migrated to Medina with the Prophet, and the Ansar, the local inhabitants of Medina who had embraced Islam.
Ah, so a division within the community.
Yeah, exactly. And he knew that this division could weaken their chances of victory. Unity was essential.
It's amazing how he was able to see the bigger picture, even amidst the, impending threat of battle. So what did he do?
As the battle began, Abbad climbed a mound so everyone could see and hear him. And he delivered a powerful speech.
A rallying cry.
Exactly. He specifically addressed the Ansar, urging them to fight bravely, to prove themselves for the sake of Islam.
I can only imagine the impact of his words. What happened next?
His words ignited a fire. Around 400 men gathered around him, ready to fight. Among them were some of the most respected warriors. Thabit ibn Qais, Al-Bara ibn Malik, even Abu Dujana, the keeper of the Prophet's sword.
Wow. He was leading a group of the bravest and most dedicated fighters. What a moment.
It was. And with Abbad leading the charge, they launched a fierce attack, pushing Musaylima's forces back towards a place that became known as the Garden of Death.
The Garden of Death, what a haunting name. It sounds like the fighting was intense.
It was a true clash of wills. But the Muslim army, fueled by Abbad's leadership and their faith, fought valiantly.
But knowing Abbad's story, I'm afraid to ask, did he survive?
Sadly, no. He fell during that fierce encounter. He fought until his last breath, giving everything for what he believed in.
That's so sad, but also so inspiring. How did they find him?
They found his body, covered in so many wounds he was barely recognizable. Abbad Ibn Bishr, the friend of the Quran, the courageous warrior, the generous companion, he died a hero.
What a powerful ending to his story. It truly exemplifies the spirit of Islam. But even in death, his story doesn't end there, does it?
No, it doesn't. His legacy lives on. Even though he died so young, his impact on the early Muslim community was huge, and we can still learn from him today.
I think what strikes me most is his concern for unity. Even in the middle of a battle, that was his main worry. And in a way, that concern for unity, it helped the Muslims win at Yama.
That's a really interesting point. It's like his, final act was to bring people together even after he was gone.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that true faith is about more than just personal piety. It's about living those values, serving others, working for the good of the community.
Absolutely. And imagine if we all, approached life with that same kind of dedication and belief.
It's hard to even imagine.
It is, isn't it? What would the world look like if we all prioritized, our values, sought unity, faced challenges with, unwavering faith?
Wow. That's a really powerful thought.
It really is. Abbad Ibn Bishr's life shows us just how powerful faith can be. It can help you overcome any obstacle, and it can inspire incredible acts of courage and selflessness.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. I feel like Abbad's story is a real call to action. It's a reminder to, strive for something bigger than ourselves, to live our values and contribute to the world around us.
And that message, it's timeless. It's as relevant today as it was back then.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought. What does Abbad's story teach you about commitment, sacrifice, and the power of faith in the face of danger? It's something for all of us to think about.
And if you want to learn more about the Sahaba and their inspirational lives, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sahaba Role Models.
We'll see you next time.
البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع جئت شرفت المدينة مرحبا يا خير داع. ما شاء الله, we did it. الحمد لله.